Sorry about that again. I got to stay away from the controls here. Uh, my name is Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic. I want to welcome everyone here to week number 30. The Big Book Comes Alive Step Study Workshop Cycle. I believe it's cycle number 5 on Zoom. Probably in terms of years, it's about 15. We've been doing it on Sunday evenings in Connecticut live and now here. So welcome. And happy St. Patrick's Day to one and all, whether you're from Ireland, like my wife, and I feel I'm Irish too. I love it there. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone, whether you're Irish or not. It's wonderful. Okay. Uh, there are a lot of people here, maybe for the first time. Like I said, welcome. If you need to catch up, go to our website, which is called thebigbookstudy.com. It's very difficult to remember that one, thebigbookstudy.com. And Andy has put up all of the weeks leading up to this, except last week. And as well as the Monday night meeting, the deep dive, they're all there. You can catch up with it, all the attachments, everything is there. So please get caught up. I'm going to have to mute everyone. I'm getting a lot of interference. Let's try this again. Okay, hopefully that'll work. All right, we are in We Agnostics, probably my favorite chapter in the book. And what we've been talking about is, by the time we get to this chapter, Bill has done a pretty good job of convincing me, at least, that I'm not going to recover without a spiritual solution to this problem. And that just wasn't going to work for me. You see, my association when I came here was, you mentioned God, my association is religion, religion, religion. And it wasn't good because I was raised in Judaism, and I had to go to Hebrew school for religious training every day after regular school from 3:30 to 5 o'clock between the ages of 9 and 14. 5 years of that, cramming all this dogma into my head, telling me all these quaint little fables, and having me accept a conclusion just because they say that that's the way it is. And that turned me off to religion, and it turned me off to authority figures. Just because they're in charge doesn't mean they're right. So I had a lot of baggage when I came in here, and Bill knew that because Bill had the same issues. Remember when he sat at the table with Eber, and forget about whether there are other people there or not, it's not important. But Eber was there and Bill was there, and Eber planted a seed with Bill. And he was talking about God, and every time he mentioned God, Bill was thinking religion. He had past associations that got in his way, just like I had past associations. Maybe mine was different than his, but the conclusion was the same, that this is not going to work for me. What else you got in that bag of tricks? So Bill knew that, and he sat down and he wrote this chapter to all of us, because I believe we're all agnostics. And if you doubt your agnosticism, take a minute, look back over your life today. Try and find the one area that seems most unmanageable. Is there somebody who you love who's sick, somebody who's traveling, you want to make sure they arrive safely? Just some area that you feel maybe a little help to God will tell him what I want to do. Forget about God is not my errand boy. For this one request, God, I need an exemption. So there's your agnosticism, that doubt, and that is good. Doubt is a good thing because it sets us on a path to find things. It sets us on this spiritual journey. So Bill sat down and he wrote this chapter for us. And he wrote it in such a manner that he didn't tell us exactly, this is God, this is God, this didn't do that. He let us conclude by ourselves. He gave us enough new information. And that's all we need is new information so that we may consider it. We may ponder upon it. We may think about it. And if we do that, then God will prove to us that there is a God. It's that simple. The end of this chapter, and you're about to see it in a moment, mentions that when we drew near to him, he revealed himself to us. Later on, by the time we get to page 83 and 84, Bill mentions that we have made conscious contact with our Creator. So the first thing we have to do is recognize that he exists or she exists. And this chapter exists to give us enough new information so that maybe we'll, okay, I'm willing to think about it. That's all we want. That's all we want. Are you willing to do that? Don't shut your door anymore. Don't close your mind to these things. And where we are today is we're on page 55. And Bill has already told us how to find God. You know, we may as well review that on page 46. Let's jump to 46. Hopefully I won't lose you as we bounce back and forth. Page 46. Nope. 46. He gives us instructions in the middle chapter, which begins with, yes, we have agnostic temperament. If you see that paragraph, 3 lines down, he gives us the first instruction for how to find God. And that is set aside prejudice. Set aside everything you think you know, all of those past associations, whether it's religious training like Hebrew school or whatever it is that you connect with God that's getting in your way. Set it aside. Just be willing to set it aside. And the second instruction is at the end of that line where he says a willingness. There's the second thing we have to do. Be willing. That's all. We don't have to accept it yet. We don't have to turn anything over. All we're doing is saying, I think there might be something bigger than me out there. That's all we want. It's all we want. So we set aside prejudice. We be willing. And then down at the bottom of the page, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up from the bottom is the third instruction for how to find God, which is seek him. That implies action. I am seeking that God. So we now know, according to Bill, how to do this. And we're about to find out where. We're going to get all these questions answered. We're going to find out where. We're going to find out when. We're on page 55, the first full paragraph. I'm going to suggest you highlight the 1, 2, 3, the first 3 paragraphs in normal highlight, which is yellow. If you're new here, we have this anal retentive system for highlighting. It'll be in the chat so you can follow along with my insanity. But the point is, we do that. We designate certain things by color, like prayers and promises in pink. Lots of P's. So that if we want to thumb through the book and find those things, we just thumb through it. Oh, here's a pink one. Here's another one. Here's another one. How about there are no, what is the word?
Must.
There are no musts. There you go. There are no musts in the book. Well, we highlight musts in green. So just thumb through the book and you'll find things in green. That's must. And so on. So we're just highlighting this in any ordinary color. I use yellow. I think that's the only color, primary color, that doesn't have a designation to represent recovered or approached or must. It's a general highlight. This is important. And the stuff on this page is important. Let me just tell you that before we read this, I came in here very confused. And I mentioned some of the reasons why before. And I looked after I had that experience when I was 16 on acid, when I thought I saw God. And if you've ever taken acid, you know that's not that outrageous a thing. But I really felt that. So I went on a mission to find that power again without the LSD. And I went to synagogues and I went to churches and I went to mosques. I lived in the city, so I went to the Church of Krishna Consciousness. You know, those guys with the little symbols and the gowns and the little schwanz on their head. Well, that didn't work for me because I believe God created us in his own image. And I know he wouldn't dress like that or wear his hair like that. So that didn't work for me. But the point is, I went looking. It took me 30 years to find it. And I found it on page 55 of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how important what we're about to read is, at least how important it was to me. So it's all highlighted in yellow because it does stand out, and there are going to be sections which we go further than that. But let's start the paragraph with the reading. Yet we had seen another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world, people who rose above their problems. How about we underline that? People that rose above their problems. Top of page 55. What does that mean? It's basically, we're talking about alcoholics restored to happy, useful, productive lives by adopting a spiritual basis for their lives. Now, seeing them have these things, to be restored to those things, and they tell us that this is how they did it, we have to at least think about, okay, maybe I could do that too. Because everything else about this person is similar to me, except his current life now is a little bit different, but his background is the same. Maybe I can get what he got. So that's what, when we say that people who rose above their problems, we should see and believe in that. That's what I think he's talking about. Go to meetings and you'll see those people who have risen above their problems. They're the ones who get there early. They're the ones who hang around the front door to greet people. They're the ones who walk up to the new people when they come in the room. They're the ones who come early, and they're the ones who stay late. They're the ones who go to the newcomer, approach the newcomer the way we're supposed to. All right, off the soapbox.
Right, I have a message saying that we left off on page 53 last.
Did we leave off on 53?
No.
No, I got 55. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
I got 55 and I got 55 and we finally is where I stopped.
That's
exactly
correct.
where we stopped. That's where we stopped. We
Finally.
finally.
Yes.
That's finally.
Yes.
We finally, huh? Where the hell?
Correct.
Yeah, I got that too.
Okay, that may be, but yes, all right. But I do need to go up a little further.
Understood. No problem.
Okay, because I kind of stopped at that point last week when I realized what time it was and what we were about to step into, and not try and accomplish that in the last minute of the meeting. So we are officially on page 55, paragraph 1. If you'd like to hear the stuff that came before it, it'll be on the website. Give it a day or so. I promise I'm going to get it to Andy in the next 48 hours. Okay. So he said, they said God made these possible and we only smiled. Can you identify with that? Someone who's got those happy, productive people. And they tell us they got it by applying God, by turning their life over, by believing in this power and accepting this power. They said God made these things possible and we only smiled. We'd seen spiritual release, but like to tell ourselves it wasn't true. We could see it. We could see what's happened in that guy's life. We still can't believe and accept it happened because he believed in God. Come on, Ron. What lottery did you hit? Okay. Actually, we were fooling ourselves. Here it is. Please highlight this phrase in pink. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. Now, some of us may call that our conscience. We may call it our gut feeling, call it innate intelligence, call it my inner guide. But what this is telling me is that deep in me is this fundamental, and what is a fundamental idea? Fundamental, first of all, basically means the fundamental idea means it is the foundational idea, the idea upon which all other things are built. So our spiritual structure, that spiritual arch, is built on this foundation. That's what fundamental means. Fundamental also implies innate, and we're going to get to that word pretty soon also. But fundamental just indicates that something that exists so everything else can exist on top of it. As somebody's mic is open, let me just, oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. It may be obscured by, please underline calamity, please underline pomp, please underline worship of other things. I'm going to ask that you number those things. Calamity is number not 7. Pomp is number 8. And 9 is worship of other things. Now, if you haven't been here, you're probably asking, what the hell is that? Where are the other 6? Well, Andy, if you'll give me things that block us, 48A, if you would. It's a handout for all of the things that block us that Bill has already mentioned. Because I said this is 7, 8, and 9. Well, here are the first 6. He talked on page 40 about obstinacy, that unreasonable stubbornness, self-willed stubbornness, sensitiveness. We're all such delicate flowers. We get irritated so often. We are especially sensitive. And 3, unreasoning prejudice, forming opinions without knowledge, without experience. See, when I heard about prejudice, I got really up. No, I am not prejudiced. You know, I go through that, some of my best friends' nonsense, and myself as well, but no, it's not what it means. Prejudice just means when I form opinions without knowledge, without experience. And then on page 51, he gives us 3 more. He says, these are the things that block us from God: superstition, tradition, fixed ideas. Tradition in this context really just means an established set of practices. If you've ever gone to a new job or started anything new with somebody and you went to go do something a certain way, and the people, maybe your supervisor, maybe the foreman of the job, said, wait a minute, that's not the way we do things here. This is the way we do it. That is tradition and fixed ideas. He's not open to the possibility that you may have a better idea. We're on page 55. The last 3, someone's asking where these 3 are: superstition, tradition, fixed ideas. They're on page 51. 51-1, exactly like it says here. And the first 3 are on page 48, the top paragraph, which is not numbered because there are no numbers for that. And then on 55, later on 55, you're going to find what we just talked about: calamity, pomp, and worship of other things. Calamity, just tragedy. People around you dying, people around you being sick, losing jobs, losing relationships, trauma, any kind of trauma. You go out to start your car and it doesn't start, and you realize that it's shot. I can't fix this anymore, and I don't have money to fix it. That's what we're talking about. These calamities of everyday life. Pomp, well, that's just ego, pride, vanity, and worship of other things. And we talked about that last week, whether it was money or a job when we said to ourselves, if I had that, everything would be fine. If I only had that job, if I only had that bank account, if I only had that woman, if I only had that man, if I only had, and you fill in the blank. That's worship of other things. So these are all things that block us from spiritual growth, things we put in front of simple, childlike faith. Just believing that there is this power. And why should we have trouble with that? I mean, we've turned our lives over to a higher power that brought us here. What was alcohol and drugs but a higher power? It did for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. It certainly did for me. It allowed me to function the way I always wanted to, but never could. It allowed me to speak to women. It allowed me to be the center of attraction. I thought all the things I would like to be, I thought alcohol gave me and drugs, but it did not. So we see what's been blocking us from spiritual growth. Basically, these are the 9, but there are plenty more. We used to have a handout that had about 30 of these, and I tried to narrow it down to the most important ones, the ones he mentioned specifically. So these are the 9. Okay, let's get back to the book. Man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by, and that's obscure just means blocked. It may be blocked by calamity, pomp, worship of other things. But in some form or another, it is there. Sorry about that. It is there. And please over-highlight this last sentence in pink. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as God, man himself. Please underline the term miraculous demonstration and circle the word underneath it, which is facts. These are facts as old as man himself. Demonstrations of miraculous demonstrations. We defined miracle a while back as divine intervention in human affairs. When we see something that we know God has made possible, God is not a stranger to anonymity. He often shows up in our human affairs in the disguise of things we call luck. He appears as, what are chances of that happening? It appears as, that's a coincidence. It appears as any number of things we tell ourselves, our soul, our gut feeling. Perhaps God was acting anonymously on our behalf when he so identified himself. So we're looking for God and we already see him. So let's continue here. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was part of our makeup. Please underline that. Let's talk about that for a moment. Part of our makeup. To me, that means I'm born with it. It's part of our makeup. That's what that means to me. So that means that God has been here all the time. I may not have recognized him, and I may have identified him, as I said before, falsely as what are luck or chance or gut feelings or coincidence. That's his favorite disguise. He appears as coincidence. Also appears as suddenly. Okay. Was part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to we had should be circled in green because we had means must. A lot of different ways in this book, Bill uses the word must, aside from the 4 letters M-U-S-T. Here's one. And he says you have to do something. That's a must to me. We had to, please underline, search fearlessly. Remember previously, he told us first thing we had to do, lay aside prejudice. Second thing, be willing. Third thing, seek him. So he's referring to it again. We have to search, seek fearlessly. Without any doubts, we have to seek and be open. That's where we lay aside prejudice. We had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. Please highlight and underline these next 3 lines. We found the great reality, capitalized G, capitalized R, means God. It's a euphemism for God. Deep down within us, in the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found or she may be found. It was so with us. With us, once again, refers to the first 100. On the very first page of the book, we're told that we are 100 men and women who have recovered from this hopeless state of mind, body, and spirit. And if that's the case, then anywhere he uses the term we, he's referring to himself and the other members, the other founders who supposedly wrote the book. They certainly made up the original Alcoholics Anonymous. And whether it was 40 or 70 or 100, don't let facts get in the way. Bill never did, so why should we? But the point is, that's what he's referring to when he said it was so with us, all of those 100. We can only clear the ground a bit. And the rest of the paragraph, I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, highlight in pink. I'm getting some interference again here, so while you're highlighting, let me see if I could find it. Is Rachel here? Rachel in space? No. Okay. All right, let me just make sure we're all closed here. Okay, so we're going to highlight the rest of this paragraph in pink. If our testimony helps, please underline, sweep away prejudice. In other words, get rid of those old ideas, those things that were drilled into our heads when we were in Catholic school or Hebrew school, all of those things that people taught us that turned out to be at least questionable. That's what we're talking about. Set aside prejudice. We sweep it aside. Before he said, set it aside. So that's like, I take this and I move it. Oops, I move it over to here. I've just moved it from one place to the other. I've set it aside. Now we sweep it away. When you sweep something away, it's gone. It's gone. It's past you. It's now part of the garbage that gets picked up in the morning. So sweep it away now. Enables you to think honestly. Isn't thinking honestly another way of saying willing? If I'm thinking honestly, I'm thinking about the truth. I'm not believing in lies. And that's what insanity is, belief in a lie. I'm believing in the truth. So he's telling me once again, see if this doesn't sound familiar. Number 1, sweep away prejudice. Before it was lay aside prejudice, set aside prejudice. Number 2, and please put the number 2 next to this, think honestly. And encourages you to, please underline, search diligently within yourself. So now we're not only told to seek, but we're being told where. to seek diligently within yourself, because in the final analysis, that's where he's to be found. So diligently within yourself. Then, if you wish, you can you can join us on the broad highway. That broad highway is the fourth dimension. We've already defined it. That place where we are in sync, we are in harmony, spiritually, mentally, physically. So let me read this again without the breakups, because it has more impact if I read it that way. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself, then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. Please bear in mind, there isn't an asterisk at the end of that sentence where it says sure to come to you, and there's an asterisk, and on the bottom of the page, it says individual results may vary. You get that on toys, you get that on mileage on your car. Individual mileage may vary. There's no individual mileage here. This is what some of my friends in Belfast call a cast iron guarantee, right? Isn't that what they call it?
Mhm.
This is your cast iron guarantee. It's there. It's there. So let's continue. In this book, in the last part of what we read here, the broad highway, he mentions with this attitude. That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. The consciousness of your belief, I think that tells me that a God of my own understanding is guaranteed to come to me if I keep an open mind. Remember, I said earlier, the whole point of this chapter is to get us to open our minds to the possibility of something. He's doing it again. That all we have to do is be willing. That's all.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have wrote down in my book, Cafe Alcoholic. So they're giving us, like you talked about, to search diligently, think honestly, sweep away prejudice, and within yourself. If you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. And it says, with this attitude, you cannot feel the consciousness. And like, I love this word, is awareness. This awareness of your belief is sure to come. And I think that's referred to as the sixth sense as well. Like,
Mhm.
that's it.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. That's what we're talking about, is this sixth sense. Everything we know, everything I know, I accessed, came to me through my five senses. See it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it. Those are our five senses: see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. But now I'm expected to establish a method of communication with that unknown quantity, that higher power that we've just acknowledged exists. So we're supposed to do that. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
It'll come back to me. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Oh, that's frustrating as hell. Okay. I apologize. I will get it back in a minute. We can only clear. Oh, we did that. We finished that. In this book, you'll read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. Please underline that word, thought. He thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now. Let's take a brief departure. We're talking about a gentleman by the name of Fitz Mayo, Fitz Mayo. Andy, if you can give me screen 411.
You're wonderful.
Hmm?
You're wonderful.
Thank you. Here we go. This is who we're talking about. That dashing young gentleman is Fitz Mayo, John Henry Fitzhugh Mayo. Man, they had some kind of handles back in those days. Throckmorton, Ebby's middle name was Throckmorton. Come on, Fitzhugh. When was the last time you met somebody named Fitzhugh or Throckmorton? So that's who we're talking about. Fitz Mayo, who wrote the story, Our Southern Friend. Well, he was credited as being the author. Bill actually wrote it, but he wrote the story, Our Southern Friend, in the first edition. He was number 3 successful recovery in New York. When Bill returned to New York from Akron, with already were a bunch of others, he started working with other people, and he worked with Hank Parkhurst, who's number 2 in New York, and Fitz Mayo, who's number 3 in New York. And on the left side, it says number 8, but number 8 in total. Number 3 in New York, Bill, Hank, Fitz. Now, for what it's worth, Fitz Mayo, he lived in I think it was Virginia or Arlington, somewhere in that area. And we were thinking of naming the book A Way Out by Alcoholics Anonymous. So Bill asked him, since he lived closer to Washington, D.C., do you mind going to the Library of Congress and seeing how many books are out there that have titles like that? Now, today, we can Google it and find that information in a split second. We didn't have any of that then. And you couldn't go to the library because it wouldn't be total, wouldn't be all-inclusive. So he went to the Library of Congress, and he found there were a number. And I don't want to get into the number because some people say it was 12, and that's spiritual because we have 12 traditions and 12 steps and 12 concepts. I don't buy that. The numbers change. Some say 27, some say that. The point is, there were a number of books using that title, A Way Out. So Fitz suggested to Bill, why don't we just call it Alcoholics Anonymous? Instead of A Way Out by Alcoholics Anonymous, let's shoot the load. Call the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And the story goes that Bill thought very highly of that. He turned it around to Dr. Bob, who thought highly of it. And according to Dr. Bob, he got the okay from everybody else in Akron. And we've come to find out that he probably didn't mention it to anybody in Akron because the concept of this book was not a well-accepted project in Akron. So Dr. Bob said, yeah, Bill, that's great. Go ahead and do that. And the title of our book came from Fitz Mayo saying, why don't we just call it that? Out of desperation, out of exasperation, tired of this whole thing, going to Washington and coming back. Don't give me another title. I'm going to have to research. I know nobody has the title Alcoholics Anonymous. And it stuck. And they named the book Alcoholics Anonymous, which means they named the program Alcoholics Anonymous, which means the fellowship that came after the book was called Alcoholics Anonymous after the book. First thing we had was the book. That was our program. We adopted it as a name for this society we formed. But the Alcoholics Anonymous refers to the book, to the program. Okay, where are we? Back to 55. We're talking about Fitz Mayo. His story. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention. You all know Fitz Mayo. I'm telling you about somebody you probably remember. If we go all the way back to the doctor's opinion,
Mhm.
Remember, there's a story to right a page before the end of Doctor's Opinion. He talks about somebody who hid in a deserted barn, determined to drink themselves to death. Remember that story? That's Fitzmail. That was Fitzmail. He decided to drink himself to death, and they found him, interrupted his project. But that's what we're talking about. And there are periodic other times in the book that Fitz is referred to, because he's one of those guys. In the beginning, he's one of our founders, whether you think it or not, he is. So in any case, it says he thought he was a atheist. His story is so interesting. I'm getting noise again. Okay, sorry about that. His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now. His change of heart, you may want to underline that, change of heart. Change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. But there's something else I want to point out to you. Well, I'll come back to it. Our friend was a minister's son. Oh, incidentally, if anyone wants to know, oh, gee, if Fitz was that important, what happened to him? How come we don't know about Fitzmail? Well, unfortunately, Fitz died in 1943, 4 years after the book was published. He never got to see this, the blossoming of this fellowship. He never did. And I'm sure he missed that. But he never got to see that. And he is one of the people responsible for this being here. But he died at the age of 43 with 8 years of sobriety. He was sober when he died. Unfortunately, they don't know the exact date that he was born, but they know it was in July of 1897. 1897. He passed away in 1943. By my mathematics, that means he was 3 years old, 54 years old. That's Fitzmail. Okay, let's get back to the book. Gary, did I leave anything out substantial about Fitz? Gary? Gary, is he here? Okay, well, when he shows up. I'm talking about our friend Gary, who wrote that book, who's doing the presentation tomorrow. Okay, back to the book. Sorry for the detour. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. We're on the top of page 56 right now. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought, big check I put next to this, an overdose of religious education. Can anyone here identify with that? Being force-fed religious dogma, whether it's in school or parents or family, we're just shoving this crap down our throat.
Let's let Gary unmute. He couldn't unmute.
Oh, couldn't unmute. I'm sorry, Gary. Yes. How's that? Now you can.
There we go. Yeah, I couldn't unmute. The one thing about Fitz is the story of our Southern friend is in all 4 editions of the big book. But the thing is that when our Southern friend went from the first edition to the second edition, the story was shortened substantially. And when my sponsor originally came into the program back in 1955, he was given a second edition and the last 3 paragraphs of our Southern friend, which was removed from the second edition. And you will find it's a good reason to get a first edition reprint because it's the only place you'll see those 3 paragraphs. And they're among the finest prose in any story.
Thank you, Gary. What Gary's referring to is there are anniversary editions of the first edition put out by World Services, for one. The Anonymous Press, who makes the study version of the big book as well, they reprinted exactly the way it went to press. So if you want to get those 3 paragraphs, they're at the end of this story. Can you find it first? Maybe we'll get into it today. Our Southern friend. Let's see if we have time for that. Our friend was a minister's son, rebellious to what he thought an overdose of religious education, you bet. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration, business failures, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. Please, let's go back and underline those words. Underline trouble and frustration. Underline business failure. Please underline insanity and underline fatal illness and suicide. Now let's remember this story in the doctor's opinion. What was Fitz doing in the barn? He was attempting to kill himself. Suicide. So that's what he chose. That's the way out that he chose. But the whole family was plagued by all of these things. In his other immediate family, embittered and depressed him, post-war disillusionment, cynicism, just cynicism after the war. Ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction, to the point of suicide, when he decided to drink himself to death in the barn. Like I said, it's in the doctor's opinion. We talked about it a while back. If you like, let's get a quick look at that since we do have a few minutes. Do you have that?
Our Southern friend.
Yeah.
Yes, I have the story. What do you want out of it?
It's the last 3 paragraphs,
Okay.
Gary said.
And actually, I just want to note on page 237 on our Southern friend, there's the famous Fitzhugh 3rd step prayer. And it reads, God, here I am, here are all my troubles. I've made a mess of things and I can't do anything about it. You take me and all my troubles and you do anything you want with me. Does that answer your question? That's not part of the prayer. That answers the question. I say that. I love that prayer. The last 4 paragraphs.
Yeah.
We read them.
You want to read them? Kathy's going to read those last few paragraphs of our Southern friend that are not in the 4th edition.
All right. Page 240, if you have this. So I cannot see. Let me see. Yeah. I cannot see the cause of this temptation now, but I am to learn later that it began with the desire for my own material success becoming greater than the interest in the welfare of my own fellow man. I learned more of that foundation stone of character, which is honesty. I learned that when we act upon the highest conception of honesty, which is given us, our sense of honesty becomes more acute. I learned that honesty is truth, and the truth shall make us free. Sensuality, drunkenness, and worldliness satisfy a man for a time, but their power is a decrease in one. God produces harmony in those who receive his spirit and follow his dictates. Today, as I become more harmonized within, I become more in tune with all of God's wonderful creation. The singing of the birds, the sighing of the wind, the patter of raindrops, the roll of thunder, the laugh of happy children add to the symphony with which I am in tune. The heaving ocean, the driving rain, autumn leaves, the stars of heaven, the perfume of flowers, music, a smile, and a host of other things tell me of the glory of God. There are periods of darkness, but the stars are shining no matter how black the night. There are disturbances, but I have learned that if I seek patience and open-mindedness, understanding will come. And with it, direction by the Spirit of God. The dawn comes, and with it, more understanding. The peace that passes understanding, and the joy of living that is not disturbed by the wilderness, by the wildness of circumstances or people around me. Fears, resentments, pride, worldly desires, worry, and self-pity no longer possess me. Ever increasing are the number of true friends, ever growing in the capacity for love, ever widening is the rising of understanding. And above all else comes a greater thankfulness to and a greater love for our Father in heaven. I think I read more than 4 paragraphs, but
Oh, that's great. I think what I'll do is in the email mail out for next week, I'll include that. So if you don't have those paragraphs, Gary, you still here?
yeah.
Gary, any idea as to why they removed that?
Well, I don't really know, but it is among the longest stories. And sometimes stories are shortened to match page requirements. There are there are 3 stories, for example, in the 4th edition that have been shortened from the 3rd edition. And the only way you find that out is when you go through all the stories and you have the different editions in front of you. And the Southern Friend was the longest story, I believe, of any of the stories in the big book. And I guess they thought they had needed to shorten it for, again, page requirements.
All right, thank you. So it wasn't because of anything that he said in there. It was just a question of space.
Yeah, somewhere there is a comparison. You can find it on the web where you can monitor each one of the deletions from that story. People have invested that much effort in documenting the differences.
Wow. I have to find out from you how to do that. We'll get into it. All right. Thank you so much, Gary. Let's finish up the story here. Let's mute everyone. Okay. Bureau, you're on the bottom of no, the top actually, the middle, page 56. One night, when confined in a hospital, that hospital is Towns, P-O-W-N-S hospital in Manhattan, the same place where Bill had his spiritual experience. That building is at between 89th and 90th Street in Manhattan on Central Park West. It is phenomenally valuable real estate. It overlooks Central Park with no blocks, nothing in the way. Beautiful skyline you could see. It's still there. I believe the address is 229 Central Park West. It's now a co-op, a condominium thing, if you want to use that terminology. People own individual apartments. So somewhere in that building, somebody's got a room where Bill had his spiritual experience and Fitz you're about to see. How about that? They're living there and not even knowing what happened in that room. But in any case, you can go there. I've gone there. I stood in the lobby and I get chills knowing what happened in this building. Okay. I kind of let the cat out of the bag by telling you about Fitz, but let's go through it anyway. Our friends, one night when confined in the hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic. Please highlight approached or circle it in blue. We highlight and draw attention to approached references because that's what we're supposed to do. Somehow in today's culture, it became acceptable to be available. Sorry, Gary corrected me. It's 293 Central Park West. 293, not 229. But either way, you'll recognize the building. Very easy to find. Google Towns Hospital. You see a picture of it, match it up. There you go. Okay. Where was I? Our friends, no, spiritual experience. Our friend's gorge rose. Gorge is just constriction of the throat muscles. Usually happens as a result of anger. You get there. That's what we're talking about. That my dad was an expert at that. I could see the veins. I could see everything in his neck coming out. His face beet red ready to explode. His gorge was rising. His gorge was about to blow up.
Hmm.
So here he says his gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, please highlight this if there is a God. He certainly hasn't done anything for me. Can anyone identify with that?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. He hasn't done anything for me. That's how we gauge everything in our life. What is it? What's in it for me? Why should I do it? Same thing here. What has he done to me for me so far? And if you'd have asked me that, you wouldn't like the answer because my associations with God were bad. I think I mentioned it here that when my mom died when I was 14, leaving her 14-year-old son and a younger kid, 9 years old, after a lengthy bout with cancer. And when she passed, the explanation I got from my dad was, quote, God must have needed her very much. Oh, that is so cruel. That is so harsh that I parted ways with God right then and there. And that's what we're talking about here. Okay, let's get back to the book. He certainly hasn't done anything for me. Yeah, he took my mom for some reason. But later, alone in his room, he asked himself the question, and please highlight this question. Is it possible that all religious people I have known are wrong? Is it possible that all religious people I know are wrong? If in the blank page opposite this, if you have the study version, I like to every once in a while take the statements in the book and personalize them and make them into questions. So opposite this particular statement, is it possible that all religious people I know are wrong? I've written, ask yourself if millions of alcoholics restored to happy, useful, productive lives, if they say they've been stored by that practicing those principles, could they be wrong? So we're just asking ourselves that question. Ask yourself if millions of alcoholics who say they've been restored to happy, productive lives by practicing these principles, the steps, could they all be full of crap? Is it a big con? I don't think so. Let's get back to the actual reading of the book. Man, there's a microphone that's open here. If your microphone is open, would you mind just closing it? Because somebody, every time they move around, I get that sound. All right. Crowded up. Is it possible that all rich people I know are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? Please highlight that. It's in squiggly writing. If you don't live in Connecticut's Naugatuck Valley, they call it italics. We're not that advanced in Connecticut. Who are you to say there is no God? The man recounts that he tumbled out of his bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. In other words, he had a spiritual experience. That's what that means, a spiritual experience. Something happened to him that he cannot explain. In any other terms, it's God. Okay. he poured over and through him with the certainty of majesty of a giant tide flood. Okay. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. There we go. There's another euphemism for God. Andy, let's put up 4:1, please. Now, this is a work in progress, what I'm putting up here, but it's a start. These are some of the references that Bill has made. Somebody added me at the last name, last thing on the list, but I don't know who that was. In any case, these are just some things that Bill mentions in the book. Oh, I see what it was. Director, I added that one. Waldo, I added that one. But okay, these are just some things that euphemisms for God. If the G word hangs you up, try a greater power, try a guiding force, try presence of the universe, brotherhood of man, any of these things. Just don't get hung up on the G word. Okay, we could take that down and all of these are in your email, will be in your email when I get it out the next day or three. And he was overwhelmed. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. And please highlight this. He had stepped from bridge to shore. He stepped from the bridge across to the shore, to the solid place called faith. Andy, can you give me, if you don't mind, flimsy read? I don't know if I put this up last week because it's rather new, but I kind of like it. You have that one? It's called Flimsy Read. Here we go. From a flimsy reed, we're told on a few pages back, we have this flimsy reed. And what is that flimsy reed but belief? It's hope, it's belief. And if we have that, then we cross this bridge of reason, self. This bridge of reason, because we define reason as one's ability to assume, to access information and to form conclusions. That's what we're talking about, the ability to analyze and come up with answers on our own. And we cross that bridge of reason and we land on the desired shore of faith. We no longer believe. That flimsy reed, not important anymore because we don't believe. We know, because God has restored us to sanity. What little we know that. So just a thought of these things we've tied together in this chapter. Okay. For the first time, we're on the bottom of page 56, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up from the bottom. For the first time, he lived in continuous companionship with his creator. Please underline those two words. It just stumbled over. Continuous companionship. And above it, just right, please, harmony. He's in harmony with his creator. Thus was our friend's cornerstone. Again, the cornerstone was the belief fixed in place. No later vicissitude. There's a great one. Vicissitude. Vicissitude just means difficulty, hardship. Here's a simpler one. A change in one's life circumstances. Calamities, as we've already mentioned. That's what this is about. That's what he's referring to here. His alcoholic problem was taken away that very night, years ago. It appeared. And incidentally, I'm going to suggest you highlight this whole paragraph, starting back at the end of page 86. Ready? Okay. Thus, this was a friend's cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude had shaken it. His alcoholic problem was taken away that very night. Years ago, it disappeared. For a brief moment save for a brief moment of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned. Please underline has never returned, because that to me is a reference to permanent sobriety. There's a few references in the book, beginning in the beginning of the book with the forewords, and here it is again. It's possible to achieve permanent sobriety in a 24-hour a day at a time program. Okay, continuing, safer or he never returned, and at such time a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly he could not drink even if he would. God, please underline that word, has restored his sanity. Please highlight that all in pink. This whole paragraph, starting at the bottom of the previous page. Thus was our friend. All of that, pink. Okay, what is this but a miracle of healing? Please underline miracle. Yet its elements are simple. Please highlight this. Circumstances made him willing to believe. Step 2. Step 2. His life circumstance made him willing to believe. Let's underline, he humbly offered himself to his maker. Sounds like step 3 to me. So here he is taking the second and third step. Circumstances made him willing. 2, he humbly offered himself to God. 3, then he knew. In other words, he doesn't believe anymore. He has faith. Please underline the word circumstances, or even circle it. And I'm going to suggest on the page opposite, if you have the study version, or else maybe use the bottom of this page, ask yourself, what circumstance made me willing? What was it? What happened that got your attention? And the end result was you found yourself in a big book study. I know for me, I had come back from, I don't know, third relapse, second relapse, and I felt that recovery was inaccessible to me. You could tell me all about sponsorship and all that stuff and steps, and I just figured, well, I tried that and it didn't work. I just thought recovery was inaccessible to me. The circumstance that made me willing was I started to hear people who mentioned suicide, and my reaction was, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. Now, up to that point, I already, whenever anyone would talk about it, I'd say, nonsense. Only weak people do that. I started to consider and understand that suicide was a viable answer to a problem. And that scared the crap out of me. That was the circumstance that brought me to Grace Episcopal Church in Trumbull on May 2nd, 2002. That's what made me willing to believe. Do you have a willing? Do you have a willing? What made you willing to come in here?
Yeah, the fact that I was going to die an alcoholic death, and that it's probably not going to be right now, but years and years of this.
Great, great. Not afraid of dying, but afraid of living like this.
Right.
Right? Okay. He offered himself to his maker. Please highlight the rest of the paragraph, rest of the page. It's only 5 lines in pink. Even so has God restored us all. Again, us all, meaning the 100, to our right minds. Please underline right minds, and above it write sanity. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Please underline sudden, and above it write spiritual experience. If you've been with us, you know we went to the spiritual experience appendix in the back. And it told us that it doesn't matter whether it's a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening, they mean the same thing. It's only a question of time. The experience happens suddenly, like we just heard about Fitzmayo's sudden experience. Bill Wilson's sudden experience. Howard Eber, gradual experience of the educational variety. In other words, my awakening, my spiritual awakening of the educational variety didn't just happen. There was a circumstance that allowed it to happen. Okay. The revelation was sudden, and above sudden, we wrote spiritual experience. Some of us grow into it more slowly. Please underline that, and above it, write spiritual awakening. That's what I had, not a spiritual experience, an awakening. But has come to all who have honestly sought him. You may want to underline the word all. I've got it circled in my book. It's quite a promise that God comes to all of us. And please, this last line, we've already highlighted it in pink. I'm suggesting you underline it as well. If when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. In other words, we looked and he made himself available. Remember how do you find? Seek, be willing, be willing, set aside prejudice, be willing and seek. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. God just might prove to us that there is a God. If we're open-minded and we read this chapter, we should come away with the conclusion that maybe there is this power that can do for me what I can't do for myself. And that's all we've got for this chapter. We're going to see you next week, where we're going to begin how it works. Please, for next week, we don't need it right away, but get yourself a notebook, please. You know, one of those ring notebooks. We're going to need that in a week or 2 or 3. So get ahead of it. Get yourself one of those books, and we'll see you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We got some time for questions, some hands.
I'm gonna do timing.
Yes,
and
please.
I will let you know when your time is up.
Yeah, let's go with 2